9. Death by gloves. In 1996, Dartmouth College faced a tragic and sobering event involving a prominent research chemist, Karen Wetterhahn. She'd been an internationally recognized figure in her field, specializing in the study of heavy metals' effect on living organisms. However, a seemingly routine laboratory incident took a devastating turn. The accident occurred in August when Wetterhahn was working with dimethylmercury, a highly potent neurotoxin used as a reference material for other toxic compounds. She took what was considered prudent and reasonable precautions and operated within a fume hood to protect herself from potentially harmful fumes. But tragically, a mere drop or so of this colorless, highly volatile compound spilled onto her lab glove, and it rapidly permeated the protective barrier. At the time, neither Wetterhahn nor her colleagues recognized the compound's ability to penetrate so swiftly. Initially, the incident wasn't perceived as a serious concern. However, 5 months later, Wetterhahn began experiencing severe health issues, including problems with balance, speech, vision, and hearing. She was hospitalized, and on January 28, 1997, she received a diagnosis of mercury poisoning. Her blood levels were an astonishing 80 times higher than the established threshold for toxicity. Then, just 3 weeks later, she fell into a coma. Dimethylmercury, a substance first synthesized in 1865, has the remarkable ability to penetrate biological membranes, and in humans, it transforms into methylmercury, a former crop fumigant. Notably, its usage as a fungicide was banned by the World Health Organization in 1974 after a devastating incident in Iraq where it claimed the lives of 600 people. Astonishingly though, Karen Wetterhahn's death was only the 4th recorded lab fatality associated with this compound. In the wake of this tragedy, John Wynn, head of Dartmouth's chemistry department, and 2 colleagues raised awareness about the hazards of using latex gloves for handling aggressive or highly toxic chemicals. They recommended that the lab workers wear 2 pairs of gloves, one of which should be laminated. Additionally, there was a call to push for safer substitutes within the chemical community to prevent such catastrophic events from happening again. 8. Watch out for that cactus. In 1982, a truly unfortunate and bizarre incident occurred in Mount Pleasant, Arizona, involving David Grundman. Grundman's reckless escapade with a saguaro cactus, a protected species, ultimately cost him his life, demonstrating just how unlucky one can be. Grundman, for reasons only known to him, decided to venture into the Arizona desert near Mount Pleasant, armed with a shotgun and a rather peculiar intention: to shoot at cacti. Initially targeting a smaller cactus, he then turned his sights on a towering saguaro cactus, which stood at an astounding 26 feet, 8 meters, and could have been up to a century old. Standing dangerously close to the massive plant, Grundman took aim and fired several rounds, leading to a sequence of events that defied belief. As if in a cruel twist of fate, a substantial portion of the cactus, with a bizarrely humanoid appearance, broke off and descended directly onto Grundman, crushing him and impaling him with its formidable spikes. Tragically, Grundman's injuries left him unable to cry out for help, and the remote desert location only compounded the dire situation. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries not long after the mishap. This unlikely event has become something of a legend, even inspiring a song by the Texan band the Austin Lounge Lizards. The saguaro cactus, unique to the Sonoran Desert and the largest cactus species in Arizona, is protected due to its ecological significance. It not only symbolizes the region, but also provides shelter for various creatures in the challenging desert environment. Vandalizing or cutting down these cacti isn't only illegal, but potentially life-threatening, as Grundman's tragic story illustrates. Those found deliberately damaging or removing a saguaro cactus face felony criminal damage charges. carrying a maximum sentence of 25 years. But such a severe penalty is unlikely. 7. Robot versus human. In 1979, a tragic incident took place in a Flat Rock, Michigan casting plant when a 25-year-old Ford Motor Assembly line worker named Robert Williams became the first recorded human fatality caused by a robot. This grim milestone marked the 58th anniversary of the debut of Carol Capek's play, R.U.R., which introduced the term robot to the world, derived from the Czech word for forced labor. Robert Williams met his untimely demise when a robot's arm struck him in the head as he was collecting parts in a storage facility where the robot itself retrieved components. A lack of safety measures, including an alarm system to warn of the robot's proximity, contributed to this unfortunate event. Williams' family received a $10 million settlement in a subsequent legal case. Today, robots have evolved to take on various roles, from household cleaning to space exploration, agriculture, and healthcare. This evolution has sparked ethical debates around the role of robots in society. Some fear a Luddite scenario, where machinery replaces human workers, while others contemplate the science fiction concept of robots surpassing human intelligence and potentially turning against their creators. This is a notion that contradicts Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, which prioritize the protection of human life. In recent years, governments have initiated regulations for robots, and legal scholars are pondering the complexities of assigning legal responsibility for robot actions. Beyond the legal aspect, experts like Ronald Arkin, director of the Mobile Robot Laboratory at the Georgia Institute of Technology, raise questions about the emotional and psychological implications of human-robot interaction. As robotics advances, the idea of personal companions and helpers akin to the Jetsons' Rosie may become a reality. Arkin points to the intriguing possibility that these artificial entities may outshine their human counterparts, posing unique challenges to our society. In essence, the tragic death of Robert Williams in 1979 serves as a reminder of the evolving role and ethical considerations surrounding robots in our modern world. 6. Exploding lava lamp. In a bizarre and tragic turn of events in 2004, a man named Philip Quinn met his untimely end in Washington. The culprit? A lava lamp. Yes, you heard that right. A lava lamp on a hot stovetop, of all things. Philip Quinn, a 24-year-old living in a trailer home, was discovered lifeless by his parents one fateful Sunday night. Apparently, he'd been heating a lava lamp on the stove when it went full-blown volcano on him, exploding and sending a sharp, deadly shard of glass straight into his heart. Now, you might be asking yourself, why in the world was he heating a lava lamp on the stove? Well, the truth is, nobody really knows. Even Kent police spokesman Paul Peterson was scratching his head, stating, "Why on earth he was heating a lava lamp on the stove, we don't know." It's the kind of mystery that leaves you both baffled and intrigued. To give you a little context, a lava lamp is that funky 60s invention with colorful blobs of wax dancing around in a liquid chamber, putting on quite the mesmerizing show when heated by a light bulb at the lamp's base. But for Philip, this everyday household item turned into a deadly projectile. After the lamp's unexpected explosion, Philip stumbled into his bedroom where he tragically passed away. And here's the kicker. There was no evidence of drugs or alcohol involved in this peculiar and fatal mishap. 5. Fatal snoring solution. In a strange and unfortunate turn of events that unfolded in the chilly month of January 1996, Mark Gleason, a 26-year-old resident of Headley Down, Hampshire, found himself at the center of a curious and tragic tale. Mark was plagued by thunderous snores that kept his girlfriend, Tracy Lambert, and possibly the entire neighborhood wide awake at night. The root cause of his nocturnal disturbance was a persistent sinus issue resulting from a prior road accident, according to his concerned mother. Desperate for a solution to his noisy slumber, and apparently losing hope in the medical community's ability to cure his snoring, Mark and his girlfriend concocted a plan that could only be described as brilliantly bizarre. They decided that the best way to deal with the incessant snoring was to plug his nostrils with tampons. It's one of those ideas that might have seemed brilliant in the haze of wine and perhaps some ill-advised sleeping pills. So, Mark Gleason, after a night of wine and sedation, found himself comfortably asleep on his girlfriend's sofa with tampons serving as makeshift nasal silencers. The plan might have sounded quirky, but the consequences were anything but funny. The following morning, as Tracy tried to rouse her slumbering partner, she was met with a grim discovery. Mark Gleason had passed away in his sleep. The seemingly whimsical solution had taken a dark and tragic turn. A pathologist later confirmed that Mark's untimely demise was partially due to suffocation caused by those tampons in his nose, and the sleeping pills he'd taken only exacerbated his breathing problems. The lesson here is quite simple. When faced with snoring troubles, don't resort to DIY remedies involving nasal plugs and wine. Mark Gleason's peculiar and absurd death goes to show that sometimes even the quirkiest of solutions can lead to unimaginable consequences. So, as you navigate life's peculiar challenges, remember to tread lightly. 4. Cuckoo for carrots. In a peculiar and cautionary tale from London in 1974, a coroner's inquest unearthed the astonishing cause of a 48-year-old health food enthusiast's demise: carrot juice addiction. The unfortunate individual in question was Basil Brown, a scientist whose extreme dietary habits ultimately led to his untimely death. During the court proceedings, it came to light that Basil Brown had embarked on a truly extraordinary experiment with his health. Over a span of just 10 days, he consumed a staggering 70 million units of vitamin A, supplemented by a daily consumption of approximately 1 gallon of carrot juice. And as a result of this rather unusual diet, his skin took on a conspicuous and alarming shade of bright yellow, marking the ominous consequences of his extreme regimen. The autopsy, conducted by Dr. David Haler, revealed a startling revelation. The colossal intake of vitamin A from both carrots and tablets had brought about a condition that was virtually indistinguishable from the effects of alcohol poisoning. In essence, it led to cirrhosis of the liver, a condition typically associated with excessive alcohol consumption. This baffling case underscores the importance of moderation and balanced dietary choices, even for those with a passion for health and wellness. While many of us are aware of the benefits of vitamins and nutrients found in fruits and vegetables, we need to remember that too much of a good thing is a bad thing. 3. Killer beard. This next story takes us all the way back to 1567, when Hans Steininger, a renowned mayor from the 16th century in Austria, was celebrated for his impressive 4-foot-long, 1.2-meter beard, which is now exhibited at a local museum in Branau am Inn. Steininger had a peculiar habit of rolling up his lengthy beard and tucking it into his pocket to keep it out of the way. But sadly, his remarkable facial hair ended up causing his demise when disaster struck. One fateful day, a fire broke out, and in the midst of the chaos, Steininger forgot to secure his beard as he normally did. While descending a flight of stairs, he tripped, and the fall proved fatal. So in the end, Hans Steininger's beard earned fame not just for its extraordinary length, but also for being the inadvertent cause of his untimely death. 2. Cockroach eating contest. In November 2012, an unusual incident took place in Florida when a 32-year-old man named Edward Archbold participated in a bizarre competition to win an $850 python at the Ben Siegel Reptile Store in Deerfield Beach. The competition, known as Midnight Madness, involved consuming a variety of insects and worms, with the contestant who ate the most emerging as the victor. Archbold enthusiastically downed numerous roaches and worms during the event. and while the exact quantity wasn't disclosed, he was described as the life of the party by the store's owner. However, the festivities took a grim turn shortly after the competition concluded. Archbold fell ill and began vomiting, prompting a friend to seek medical assistance. Then, in a surprising twist, Archbold himself dialed 911 for help. His condition rapidly deteriorated, leading to his collapse outside the store. An ambulance rushed him to the North Broward Medical Center, where he was tragically pronounced dead. The Broward County Medical Examiner's Office later revealed that Edward Archbold died due to asphyxia, resulting from choking on bug body parts and inhaling gastric contents. His death, though, was ruled an accident. Remarkably, none of the other contestants fell ill during the competition. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear even more stories, stay tuned for some extra content that you might have missed. 1. Crushed by cow. In July 2013, in the town of Caratinga, southeastern Brazil, a 1-ton, 1,000-kilogram cow fell through the roof of a small house, leading to the untimely death of a man and narrowly missing his wife. The unfortunate sequence of events began when the cow, which had been grazing on a hill behind the house, made a fatal misstep onto the asbestos roof, causing it to collapse under the animal's considerable weight. The victim, 45-year-old João Maria de Souza, was in bed when this extraordinary and tragic event transpired. He was rushed to the hospital, but sadly succumbed to internal bleeding the following day. Strangely, despite the gravity of the situation, Mr. Souza initially appeared to be in relatively good condition. However, it was reported that he had to endure a prolonged wait to receive medical attention, potentially contributing to the tragic outcome. This wasn't the first incident of its kind in the region, as local media reported. In fact, it marked the 3rd such occurrence in just 3 years. In the prior 2 instances, fortunately, there were no casualties. The first case saw the cow fall through a roof with no one inside the house. But in the second incident, a baby and young child were sleeping in close proximity to where the animal landed, escaping miraculously unharmed. The town of Caratinga is situated in a hilly area of Minas Gerais, a state in Brazil renowned for its cattle raising and dairy production. While this unusual and tragic incident may seem like a freak occurrence, it showcases unexpected and sometimes perilous situations that can arise, even in seemingly tranquil rural areas.
Number 9. Cold feet leads to condolences. While studying abroad in Connecticut in 2012, a young British woman named Alex Lanchester met and fell in love with a man named Tucker Blanford. What initially seemed like a fling that would end when Alex returned to Britain led to a long-term relationship between the two. Blanford proposed and Alex readily obliged. The bride-to-be planned out all the details. She bought a dress, hired a photographer, bought invitations, and paid for plane tickets so Blanford could fly to Britain and help with final preparations. But the wedding plans ground to a halt a week before his planned travel date, when Alex received a call from a man claiming to be Tucker's father, saying that her fiancé had fatally crashed his own car in the throes of a mental breakdown. She called Blanford's parents to offer her condolences, and they told her that their son was fine and that there had been no accident. They were under the impression that Tucker had broken up with Alex when she returned to Britain after her studies and were unaware of the wedding plans. While no legal consequences came out of the situation, Tucker's dishonesty caused a lot of needless emotional suffering to Alex and a lot of avoidable embarrassment to himself. He admitted that he lied about taking his own life to get out of the relationship, while sparing himself the discomfort of just breaking up with Alex. After making international headlines for it, hopefully he learned that sometimes it really is easier just to break up. Number 8. Mid-arrest mayhem. Late one night in 2022, a burglar later identified as 35-year-old Lenneth Baldeo threw potted plants at the home of a single mother in Birmingham, England. Then he barged inside, demanding money. The woman fought back, but the intruder kept pushing his way in, punching and biting her in an attempt to overpower her. Luckily, the victim managed to break free and alerted the neighbors, who called the police. As two female officers took the alleged thief into custody, he assaulted one of them and violently resisted. During the ride to the police station, the suspect verbally abused the cops and headbutted one of them, leaving her with a busted lip. Baldeo admitted to robbery, criminal damage, and 3 assault-related charges, and was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Due to the nature of his crimes, his supervision will continue after his release. Number 7. The kidnapping of Quinn Gray. Reed Gray arrived at his $4 million seaside home in Ponte Vedra, Florida one day in 2009 to find a troubling note left behind by his wife Quinn. It said that she had been kidnapped and instructed him to stay at home, to not involve the cops, and to cooperate with the abductor's demand for a $50,000 ransom. 3 days later, Quinn appeared in a parking lot in a seemingly inconsolable state. She accused a 25-year-old gas station employee, Jasmine Osmanovich, of holding her hostage at a motel room. The hotel manager remembered Quinn and told police that she didn't seem distressed during her stay, and when investigators interviewed Osmanovich, he had recordings of his interactions with Quinn that proved the two were entangled in a steamy affair, and that Quinn had conspired with him to stage her own kidnapping in an attempt to extort Reed Gray. Reed stood by his wife at first, laying most of the blame on Osmanovich and excusing Quinn based on her compromised mental state. But he eventually saw the situation for what it was and filed for divorce from his wife while she and Osmanovich went to court for extortion charges. Osmanovich pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 6 months of probation. Quinn pleaded no contest and received 7 years of probation, and they were each ordered to pay $43,000 to cover the cost of the taxpayer dollars that were wasted on police resources. Number 6. The kidnapping of Eduardo Garcia Valseca. In 2007, a group of masked men ambushed Jane Rager and her husband, Eduardo Garcia Valseca, at gunpoint along a roadside in the small Mexican town of San Miguel de Allende. The men let Jane go, but they took Eduardo to an undisclosed location where he was kept in a tiny wooden box with no light, blaring music, and a bucket to use as a toilet. He endured routine beatings, torture, and starvation, while his abductors attempted to collect an $8 million ransom that Jane couldn't afford. Each time she failed to come up with the money, the kidnappers sent her horrifying photos of the injuries they inflicted on her emaciated husband. Meanwhile, Jane tried to maintain a sense of normalcy at home for the sake of her and Eduardo's 3 children, but it was impossible to do with an intelligence agent now staying with them, and after realizing that the household was under constant surveillance by the criminals. After finally agreeing on a ransom amount, 2 of the employees who worked at Jane and Eduardo's ranch went to deliver it. Only one of them returned. The other worker had been kidnapped, and the ransom demands resumed. 8 grueling months after Eduardo was taken, he showed up at the house. Weighing just 90 pounds, 41 kilograms, he was weak, skeletal, and barely recognizable, and he was mentally traumatized. The ransom negotiations for the employee's return continued, and he was eventually freed, but the abductors remained at large, and they made it clear that the family was in danger as long as they continued to live in the area. Left with no other choice, Jane and Eduardo left their beloved ranch and moved to the United States. Jane passed away in 2012, and it wasn't until 2018 that a man named Ricardo Palma Salamanca was arrested for masterminding an eerily similar abduction to Eduardo's. To add insult to injury, Eduardo recognized Salamanca as a trustee of the school he and Jane had founded back in Mexico, someone the family knew and trusted, and would have never suspected of being his kidnapper. The abductions have stopped since Salamanca's arrest, indicating that he was most likely responsible for what happened to Eduardo. Since then, Eduardo and his kids have rebuilt their lives in the US, but they'll never forget having everything ripped out from beneath them and having to start over from scratch. Number 5. Woman kicks cop during traffic stop. Early one morning in 2022, police in Struthers, Ohio, observed a vehicle with one headlight out driving erratically at high speed. After seeing the car almost hit a curb a few times, officers pulled the driver over. As one of the cops approached 31-year-old Miranda Fairchild, she allegedly began yelling at him and refused to stop, even as he tried to tell her why she was being stopped. She was later accused of punching the officer through her open car window, prompting the police to call for backup. According to an arrest report, Fairchild continued to resist arrest even after more officers arrived, kicking one of them in the thigh and groin. Once the cops finally got her under control, they took her in and booked her for resisting arrest, driving with a suspended or revoked license, and felony assault on a police officer. Number 4. An early end to an early retirement. As part of their plan to retire early and leave the California coast, Tom and Jackie Hawks put their yacht, the Well-Deserved, up for sale in 2004. A young couple, Skylar and Jennifer DeLeon, contacted them to set up a viewing and test drive. Tom and Jackie were never seen or heard from again after that, yet the Well-Deserved returned, and Skylar and Jennifer appeared to have taken ownership of it. Hoping that Tom and Jackie had gone on an impromptu trip, but fearing the worst, relatives reported the pair missing. Authorities found no evidence of foul play on the Well-Deserved, but they remained suspicious of the DeLeons, who told investigators they bought the boat with cash. Detectives became even more concerned to discover that Tom and Jackie had apparently given Skylar power of attorney over their assets and money. Skylar claimed it was because he was trying to help the couple secure a vacation home in Mexico. The documents were notarized and signed by a witness, and by all appearances seemed legit. But the Hawks' loved ones just knew something was amiss, and that the missing couple would have never signed their hard-earned assets over to two young adults they had just met. Police agreed, and their suspicions were confirmed when Tom and Jackie's SUV was found in Mexico. The person using it said it was a gift from Skylar DeLeon. A search of the DeLeon's home turned up personal property that the Hawks' would have never given away. The notary admitted she had backdated the power of attorney documents and wasn't actually there when they were signed, but the witness who signed them, Alonzo Machane, was there at the time. In exchange for avoiding the death penalty, he told police about how he joined the DeLeons for the test drive of the boat. Once they were out at sea, Skylar and another accomplice, John F. Kennedy, forced the Hawkses to sign the documents. Then they chained the couple to the anchor and threw it overboard, killing them in one of the cruelest ways imaginable. Alonzo Machane received a 20-year sentence, and Jennifer DeLeon was sentenced to life without parole. Skylar DeLeon and John Kennedy were condemned to death, but because California has a moratorium on the death penalty and is expected to abolish it, they'll probably serve life. Either way, they're exactly where they belong. Number 3. Accident cover-up goes awry. After 21-year-old Khadijah Senna reported her vehicle stolen in Las Cruces, New Mexico in 2017, police began to suspect that she wasn't giving them the full story. An investigation found that just hours earlier, she called for help at a construction area along a freeway. Her car had been in an accident and was covered in dirt. It was bad enough that Senna got into an accident to begin with, but now she faced a whole new set of problems. Instead of receiving an insurance payout like she probably hoped for, the situation ended up costing her a considerable amount of money in the form of bail. After locating the crashed car's whereabouts, authorities charged her with filing a false report to a peace officer and perjury. Number 2. Hostage victim accused of faking it. In 2015, two masked intruders held credit union executive Matt Yussman and his mother hostage at their Bristol, Connecticut home. They strapped a device around Matt's chest, claiming it was a C4 bomb with a timer attached, and ordered him to drive to his workplace and rob it while they stayed behind with his mother. If he failed to get the money by a certain time, the bomb would explode. Matt called his boss and told him to wait with the vault combination and not to call the police. But his boss called the police, and they surrounded Matt in the credit union parking lot. A bomb squad arrived to remove the device from his chest just minutes before it was supposedly scheduled to detonate. It turned out to be fake, and once the intruders found out the police were involved, they fled the scene, leaving Matt's mother physically unharmed. It wasn't long before law enforcement and Matt's work superiors began to suspect him of staging the entire ordeal for money, based on their belief that he was a problem gambler and because he performed poorly during parts of a polygraph, something his lawyer attributed to the trauma he had just endured. They also found it odd how his mother, Valerie, described the intruders as polite and gentlemanlike. Matt was put on leave from his job and faced possible legal consequences, turning his life into a living hell for the next year, until finally the FBI connected the crime to similar incidents that were happening around the country. Most of the victims worked at banks and had enough personal information posted on social media for the culprits to figure out where they lived and observe their daily routines before making a move. Authorities cleared Matt of any wrongdoing and nabbed the suspects, convicted felons Brian Whittam and Michael Benanti. The ex-cons had met while serving prison time together for previous cases. Benanti was convicted of 23 federal charges and was sentenced to 4 life terms plus 155 years, and Whittam received a 42-year sentence in exchange for his testimony against Benanti. Number 1. Falsely convicted former lawman. Former Indiana State Trooper David Cam was horrified to arrive home one evening in 2000 and find his wife Kim and their 2 children murdered in their garage. He hadn't been the best husband, but his world fell apart when he lost his family. Unfortunately, his philandering ways quickly put him at the top of the suspect list, and the law enforcement officers he once served with were now accusing him of murdering the 3 most important people in his life in order to avoid the responsibilities of marriage and fatherhood. David adamantly maintained his innocence, and there was evidence at the scene that someone else was the culprit, including a sweatshirt that didn't belong to anyone in the family. But he was nevertheless charged with murder and was found guilty. He languished in prison for the next 13 years, while he continued to fight his case and won a second trial, but was convicted again. David won a 3rd trial, by which point his lawyer had ensured that the DNA on the mysterious sweatshirt was tested. It matched to a violent convicted felon named Charles Boney. Instead of accepting that Boney had acted alone, prosecutors now claimed that he and David Cam had co-conspired to commit the murders, while Boney's defense attorney claimed his client was set up by David. Finally, David Cam was acquitted and fully exonerated of any wrongdoing, and Boney was convicted and sentenced to 225 years in prison. David was relieved to finally be found innocent, and he won $4.6 million in a lawsuit against the state of Indiana. But it doesn't bring back his family or erase the trauma of being falsely accused of killing them. He's also stuck dealing with the fact that a lot of people remain convinced that he was involved and openly despise him. In other words, even after a hard-fought victory, the consequences of the tragedy will follow him around for the rest of his life.
Would you rather always have to wear a helmet when you're walking to prevent falling on flat surfaces, or have to wear floaties on your arms every time you take a bath or go for a swim? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.